Well, my fellow book peasants, you all voted. So today let's talk about indie book marketing, shall we? You folks know who Keith Lee is from TikTok. He's basically a food critic that just goes around and judges food on TikTok in really short clips.
My family are in Miami, Florida. I'm not sure if we in the hood, but it sure feel like it. This food that's in my hand is from a restaurant that reached out last October, and this is conch. I ain't never had conch before, but I got it today. I got it. Let's try it. It really went to 10. We spent $77.08.
I swear, 9 times out of 10, when he's done with a review, the only reason the restaurant wasn't packed before that is because they have bad marketing. The food itself is phenomenal and simply needs someone to shine a light on it to get some attention and some traction to their business. The very same principle often applies to indie authors and their books. You can have an absolutely incredible story that people would absolutely love to read about. But if you don't know how to market it and reach that audience, nobody's going to try it out. And it sucks because we all know books that have gone super viral, but the actual quality of the story isn't that great once you get into it. It's not fair, but that's just the reality of good marketing. So hopefully this video will help out self-published authors to compete against these traditional powerhouses. Now, what makes someone like me qualified to even talk about this particular topic? Well, believe it or not, digital marketing is actually my day job, and I've been doing it for the past 9 years. From website development to content writing to graphic design to Google ads, I've pretty much done it all. I understand marketing, but I also understand the business side of developing a campaign and making sure that everything, all these moving pieces work together towards a common goal. I just understand these marketing principles, and I've seen them in action work time and time again for the businesses that I've worked for. But don't worry, we don't have to just take my word for it. We'll also pull advice from past interviews from indie authors that have found a ton of success in this space, like Ryan Cahill and Evan Winters. And honestly, everyone is going to have a different opinion and strategy that's going to work for them. I'm going to give you this comprehensive plan and different ideas that you can use in your own tactics. The more you use and the more you test them, the more you can see what will work for you and your audience and your book. So I'm just going to give you everything all at once. Now, the problem with that, I have to warn you, is doing all of this yourself is going to feel incredibly overwhelming. How are you going to find time to do all of these marketing strategies and write your books and do your day job? I don't know. I wish I had the answers for you. All I can do is give you the tools, but you'll have to be the one to use them and figure out what works best for your situation. Let's start with a really simplified overview of digital marketing. You have to think of marketing more as a marathon and less like a sprint. For the most part, marketing to an audience has 3 stages, leading someone to make a purchase. You have top of the funnel activities, which is basically focused on generating awareness about your book. You have middle of the funnel activities, which is basically nurturing the consideration process. And you have the bottom of the funnel, which is basically the super in-depth content where the conversion of the customer happens, where they are convinced to finally make a purchase. On average, a normal person will need 7 to 10 interactions with a product before they actually end up making a purchase. So that's why a well-rounded marketing campaign will ensure that they're nurtured along this purchase journey so they are confident and excited by the time they actually buy your book. Now, one of the most important components of a brand is understanding your target audience. Corporations will spend millions of dollars to get as much detail about their customers as possible. This allows them to understand behaviors and buying habits, which they can then target. You, as an author, must understand who your target audience is before you ever start marketing your book. Delilah Wan, who is the author of Petition and Supplicant, said in the comments recently, "I'm firmly of the opinion that reviews and ratings are a measure of congruence between the marketing, the intended audience, and the execution. There's many a book that I've picked up because a negative review made me go, I think that would be right up my alley." She's spot on with this. If you market to the wrong audience, they might have a negative experience and they will express that. But your target audience who then reads that review and goes, those actually line up with the things that I enjoy reading. That's who your intended audience should be. For example, I just recently read Unsold by Will White, and even though it was written really well, it was a great concept, it was really well done overall, and is a super popular indie fantasy series, because it has such a manga style to it, it's not so much my preference. I'm probably not the target audience for that. I still liked it, so I didn't hate it, But you have to keep that in mind of, oh, this is who I should be marketing for. This is how I should describe my book. If you're trying to market your book for adults, but it's about a bunch of teenagers in high school, you might have a harder time resonating with that demographic. Even if it has complex themes and magic, a lot of people prefer to read stories with characters they feel like they can relate to. Now, of course, there's going to be exceptions to this. Name of the Wind features Quoth and his story about his promising future, and yet somehow how he becomes a humble bartender. Red Rising features a young man that has to compete in a tournament against his peers to prove himself and to advance in this society. Mistborn is about a young orphan girl living on the streets who learns that she has magic capabilities. This is where beta readers are going to come in handy. You should always ask your readers who they think the book is intended for, without giving them any hints of what you think it's for. The more you survey, the better and more accurate the results are going to be. If you have two readers and you ask their opinions and they have opposite opinions of one another, that's not going to be very helpful. And even if they both have the exact same opinion, it's still not helpful because you don't get any diversity. You can't be certain that that's actually the right target audience. I'd say personally that you need at least a minimum of 10 people reading your book, giving you that feedback to get a basic idea of which audience would really enjoy your story. Now, in addition to the demographic, you also need to know the actual subgenre that your fantasy story is being written in. Epic fantasy readers don't always enjoy cozy fantasy books. Funny reads like Terry Pratchett don't always vibe with readers of Joe Abercrombie and the Grimdark books. So before you ever get started with marketing, please do your research and know who are the people that are most likely going to buy your book. You want to reach them. If you wrote a grimdark fantasy, you don't need to try and convince the cozy fantasy folks to buy it. Let your audience read it and enjoy it and recommend it to the people who don't think that they would normally enjoy that type of content. Now, once you're confident in who the book is written for, we can then get started generating some awareness around your book. This stage is all about getting the word out about your story. That means discounts, promotions, free chapters, deals, etc., etc. You need to incentivize people to read your books so that they are the ones who are going to share it with their friends. You should expect to lose money in this stage. You need to lower the cost of your books as low as possible to ensure that there's just a minimal barrier for people who have never heard of you. If you're a debut author charging $30 for your book, it's just too much of a risk for the reader. But if it's a free ebook, all right, I'll give that a shot. Most of the time, before you can start making money, you need to establish some sort of brand and reputation. And to do that, people need to know that you exist. So how do we do that? Let's start small with word of mouth. Give away your book for free to friends and family, especially the people that you know will understand and appreciate the fantasy genre. At this stage, it's not necessarily a requirement to do that, but they will be more likely to enjoy it. Share it with church groups or writing networks or your local pickleball crew. Find a community and share it with the community that you're involved in. I've found that good friends will always root for your success and they will always want to support you. They'll read your work and they'll even encourage other people to do the same if they really enjoy what you've done. They want to be involved in saying, hey, I know this author and they're famous now and this is my friend. They want to be a part of that just as much as you do. I know sometimes it can feel a little embarrassing or maybe stressful sharing something so personal with people that you know, but that's just part of the process of becoming an author. That brings us to the next channel for awareness, which is social media. Social media is the virtual town square. It is your chance to shout to the world all about your story. Now, remember that whenever you market something, you need to offer value, not a sales pitch. Make it personal when you're talking on social media. Make those connections and make yourself relatable to people. Tell your online community about your writing experience and journey, shared challenges and hardships that you faced, and adversity that you had to overcome. Make fun of yourself. A lot of times people will buy a product because they like the brand, even if they've never really used it. When you're a debut author, you are the brand. They want to be involved in what you're doing, so you need to establish that brand with people. Make yourself relatable to them. How you communicate that is very important. Let me give you 2 examples. Hey everyone, I just published my first fantasy book. It's about some elves trying to overthrow a kingdom of tyrannical dragons. Right now it's free on Kindle Unlimited, and I'd really appreciate it if you clicked the link and left a review. That's okay. you're offering something for free, you are providing value that way, but it's essentially still a sales pitch. You're saying, hey, I've done something, I want you to buy it, I want this to be a transaction. So people are more likely to not engage with something like that. Let's compare that to the second example. Wow, publishing a fantasy novel was way harder than I expected. Here are 5 things I learned from my writing experience. 1. Get your ideas on the page. You can come back and clean it up later. 2. Never underestimate the power of a good Spotify writing playlist. 3. Know when to seek constructive feedback and when to get a motivational boost. 4. Set goals and be consistent. And 5. Don't forget to celebrate the little things. So do you see the difference here? One is asking for something, and nobody likes to feel like they're just a transaction. The other is offering value and insight, which makes people more inclined to learn more. Try doing giveaways and sharing contests to increase the reach of your posts. Sometimes you can boost it if you want a little bit more reach, but it should be value focused. And be sure to try different platforms too. Ryan Cahill, super successful indie author of the Bound and the Broken series, said that he had massive success on Twitter. I personally discovered Brett Lurie through TikTok. Delilah Wan shares updates on her books on her YouTube channel. So test out Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch. Whatever, try them all, test them all, find which mediums and platforms you like to create on and see which ones get the most traction. Then once you know what works and what doesn't, you can hone in your efforts and focus on 1 or 2 of the high-performing platforms. You don't have to maintain this broad spectrum of all these social media channels if they're not performing very well. But I would say you need to at least test it for about 3 months with consistent posting before you decide on a platform. That will give you enough time to see some reliable results from your various social media campaigns. Now, this is optional, but I always say that a website is the foundation of any digital marketing strategy. It is your virtual storefront where people can browse and get to know more about you and your work. I personally like WordPress as a website builder, but there's things like Wix and Squarespace that are really easy to learn and develop, even for people that don't have a lot of technical ability with that kind of technology. But like I said, I prefer WordPress, and I think that the Divi theme for WordPress is the most user-friendly, while still having a ton of flexibility and customization capabilities. Now, for a website, you'll have to buy a domain with a hosting provider like GoDaddy or Bluehost, and that could cost anywhere from like $5 to $20 a month. Usually authors will just buy the domain of their name, but that's usually available. And then if you want to use the Divi Builder, it is a one-time purchase of $250 for lifetime access and updates, which is, for websites, a pretty good deal. And they've even got a bunch of pre-built templates that you can just go in, plug in, make some minor updates, and have a relatively functioning website. So there is an initial investment there with a website. With that being said, I would advise that you have all of your website content structured, written, prepared, so you have a general idea of the layout before you end up purchasing anything. And that will make the actual design really fast and easy. And then you're not spending tons of money month after month with a website that isn't even operational or front-facing. At a bare minimum, you should have a homepage, obviously, an about page so people can get to know you and your brand, a page for your book or books that has a synopsis, a map, artwork, etc., and probably a contact page or like a newsletter sign-up page type of a thing where people can give their emails in order to get access to promotions and swag and other things like that. That's how you start to build your mailing list. And that's really all it needs, is those basic pages. I'd say take a look at other author websites and just copy whatever you like from their websites. You can worry about customizing it and making it a little bit more robust later down the line when you have a little more time on your hands. But just having something up is important. And now we're starting to get into the investment portion of marketing. Yep, so we're going to talk about digital ads. Now, if you want an in-depth testimonial to Amazon ads, go watch Daniel Green's interview with Evan Winters, author of Rage of Dragons, because he talks about how he spent most of his marketing budget on Amazon ads in the first 3 months of his book launch. And any revenue that he earned basically went right back into buying more ads for his book to just keep generating momentum and awareness to his story. Obviously, that worked out really well. I will put a link to that video in the video description below. This is just another word of mouth strategy. You are paying money to get in front of people to give your book a chance so that they will pick up the book, write a review, and recommend it to people. Like I said in the beginning, your book should just be as low cost as possible when you launch your story. Your goal is to eliminate any excuse for people not to read your book. If it's cheap and the premise resonates with the reader, they're just going to be more likely to give it a shot. Amazon ads are one of those things that are just pretty technical. It's going to be something that will be very difficult for you to learn if you don't know anything about Amazon ads. Even I have a hard time with them. So in these cases, you might have to just hire an agency or professionals to do this for you. I wish I knew some reputable agencies to recommend, but without experiencing any of them myself, I just wouldn't feel comfortable offering any of my recommendations. Just do your research, or if you have other authors in your network that you know have used Amazon ads, ask them. As far as the cost of what to expect, usually ad agencies will charge like 15 to 20% as a management fee of whatever your ad spend is. And it will usually include a spending minimum. So keep that in mind as far as the budget goes. Like if you're spending $1,000 on Amazon ads, $150 to $200 of that is actually going to go into the pocket of the ad agency. So really you're only spending about $800 on the ads themselves, just to be aware of that. Okay, now your book is out there. There might be some general buzz about your story. People are listening to their friends recommend your book, but they want to check it out for themselves first. The consideration stage of marketing is all about establishing credibility with your audience. These are going to be the skeptics that need a little more convincing before they drop $20 on some no-name author. So how do you establish credibility? Let's talk about it. First up is reviews. Reviews. This should be a relatively easy one. It's no cost and it's very minimal effort. Get reviews for your book like your life depends on it. Think about it from a consumer perspective. I recently had to buy some paint for a home improvement project I was working on. Obviously not anywhere down here. Anyways, first, I had to find the right type of paint for cabinets, and it kind of left me with two brands to choose from. And the reviews that I got for the one were better than anything else that I was seeing on the market. So that's the one we decided to go with. Since I don't know anything about paint, I just had to rely on the reviews and trust them to know something about paint, or at least their experience with it. I trusted the positive things people had to say about it, and it convinced me to make that purchase. And paint's expensive. I was surprised. It was like $80 for a gallon of paint. Has paint always been that expensive? That's crazy to me. I thought paint was like $20. That was a shock and a painful purchase. But I digress. The point is, you need to ask as many people as you can for reviews. Ask for Goodreads reviews and Amazon reviews. Those are the two big ones. Have links on your website. If you have a physical book that you're printing, add a QR code or a link at the back of the book when they're finished reading. Ask your friends and family to leave a review, and not just the stars, but actual thoughts that they have about the book. Do whatever you have to build up your reviews. And they need to be honest too. People can tell when it's a phony review. People are going to expect there to be 4, 3, or even 2-star reviews in there. That's okay, because art is subjective. If you have 10 5-star reviews and nothing else, nobody's really going to believe that that's real. So set a goal for yourself to start out with 10 reviews at a minimum. Then work your way up to 100 reviews. And when you've gotten that, your next goal should be 1,000 book reviews. And you can kind of use those as milestones to track the impact of your book. It'll take time, but you will reap the reward if you really put your time and effort into this initiative. Now, if you're still working to build your brand as an author, don't be afraid to lean on people that already have established credibility. Reaching out to influencers to read your book is a great way to get your story out there. And this is not going to be as easy as it sounds. Just because you're offering something for free doesn't mean someone's going to actually read it. Daniel Green or Murphy Napier probably aren't going to respond to unsolicited requests to read a book from some no-name indie author. That's just the sad reality of it. And I wouldn't be surprised if they have relationships with trad publishers and big-name authors. Those are going to get priority for them in most cases. Now, that doesn't mean you don't try, but I just wouldn't get my hopes up for that. Let's look at me as an example, right? I have less than 300 subscribers at the time that I'm recording this video, and my videos get an average of like 150 views. And yet me, with practically no audience at all, I love all of you that are here. I have received over a dozen review requests. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm simply saying that if a channel as small as mine gets a dozen requests, how many do you think a channel with hundreds of thousands of subscribers is going to get? There's just no way they'll have time for that. With that said, it's okay to start small when it comes to influencers. If enough small influencers are talking about your book, it might be enough to garner the interest of some of the bigger influencers organically. So keep that in mind as you're searching for YouTubers or bloggers to review your story. It wouldn't hurt to personalize it as well. Again, you are looking to establish a relationship with someone, not facilitate a transaction. Send some swag or a personalized note or engage in the comments. Now, I'm not saying you should do all these things with me, okay? I'm just pointing out things that I think work. I personally am just grateful to read these stories. That every influencer is going to be different. But I will say that when I have a good experience with an author, it makes me want to collaborate further with them. Like Caleb Palmquist, for example, author of Unicorn Vampire Hunter. If you watch my review that I gave of his story, I gave his comic book kind of a harsh review. But instead of reacting to that in a negative way, and I wouldn't blame him if he unsubscribed from my channel and never talked to me again because of that review. But he didn't do that. Instead, he reached out and told me how grateful he was for the review, and even sent out a newsletter to his subscribers telling people to come watch the video. So I'm thinking, man, this guy would be great to interview about fantasy comics, since I don't know much about that genre, or even how to handle adversity as an author, since he did such a good job of that. Delilah Wan, author of Petition and Supplicant, offers very in-depth and valuable insights in the comments of many of the videos that I've done. Like, her knowledge about trad publishing and marketing was just so refreshing that I'm like, okay, I would like to talk further about these topics with her, because I think she can add so much depth and value to other indie authors. The author of War Games, which I haven't read yet, offered to do a video with me to discuss his experience with Royal Road, which is where you basically publish one chapter of it at a time with your book. And I think that would be really great content. We could even have a back and forth debate about what we think works better and pros and cons of the different styles and different publishing strategy. Brett Lurie, author of The Hunter and the Knight, featured one of my quotes from my review on the back of his book on one of his recently updated covers. And I feel so honored to have my words promote his story. It makes me want to support him further. I could go on and on and on. Every author that has reached out to me has been so humble and so awesome. I just can't say enough good things about the indie author community. I really do have so much respect for all of you. But my point is that the more you invest time and energy with influencers to make those personal connections and relationships, I think the more likely you are to develop a relationship so you can both have mutually beneficial growth. It's kind of like the mindset of let's all grow together. Let's all lift each other up. So when all you authors out there make it big, I expect you to remember me down here. Now, nothing will put your book to the test like an Indie Fantasy Award. It will be your opportunity to see how your work stacks up against your peers. And if you do manage to win an award, it can be a huge credibility boost to your budding career. And even if it's not selected, that can be good feedback that you might need to work on a few things to make it better. So all in all, submitting your work for awards is a win-win. Now, the award that comes first to mind for me, of course, is going to be the SPFBO Awards, run by Mark Lawrence. He basically recruits 10 bloggers or YouTubers to each review 30 books from a pile of 300 selected authors. Those reviewers must then select one winner out of their group of 30 to be reviewed by the other 9 reviewers and YouTubers. And this is how we get the top 10 finalists for this award. From there, the bloggers and YouTubers will read and score each of the selected winners, and the book with the highest cumulative score wins that SPFBO award. Talk about a gauntlet. But if you win, you could have your name up there with the Sword of Kaigan, The Lost War, and Orconomics. There are other indie awards out there as well, where a lot of them you have to pay to submit your novel. But again, that's just part of the marketing costs. Find as many Indie Fantasy Award opportunities as you can, so you can add those credentials to your book. Yes, people are still judging your book by the cover, so it better not suck ass. If it looks like AI or looks like something someone could build on Canva, it's not going to be terribly convincing. I'm sorry, don't come after me. I'm just a messenger here. Visuals sell just as much, if not more, than anything you could say about your book. A picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So what does your cover say about you and your story? Invest in a good cover, and people might even mistake your book to be traditionally published. You can go to websites like Fiverr or Upwork to find some good artists that have portfolios that you can look at. I'd expect to spend anywhere from a couple $100 to $1,000 depending on the artist and the revisions and your goals for the artwork, but I think it's worth it. Now, throughout the entire awareness and consideration stage of marketing, you should be directing your audience to sign up for your email newsletter. You don't even have to send anything to these people or create any automations or any complications with emails. All you have to do is collect the information. This should be mostly passive, but it's also probably going to be the channel where you see the least results. Probably. Building an email list just is one of those things that takes a lot of time and effort. And people usually only sign up if they're being offered something in return. A discount, a free book, swag, promotions, exclusive content, etc., etc. You get the idea. But having an email list is a great way to send notifications to an audience that has shown that they want to be connected with you and your work. You can use tools like MailChimp for list emails, and I'm pretty sure you'd only need the free version for that. And if you build your website on WordPress, there are plugins where you can add those into your website to collect that information so that you can build up your list that way. And if you have a network of other authors that are your friends, you can also ask to do newsletter swaps. This basically allows both authors to increase the number of emails in their lists, which means your message can reach more people. Now, keep in mind, when you send an email, you want to have an engaging subject line and offer valuable and engaging content in the body of the email. I'd say your click-to-open ratio should be about 10% or above, and the click-through rate should be about 2% or above. Those are kind of the numbers that you're going to want to be targeting. Are you feeling overwhelmed yet? I am. I know it can feel like a lot, and to be honest with you, it is. This is why sometimes traditional publishers need 6 months to a year to market their author, and they have an entire team at their disposal. But let's discuss a few things that you can do at the conversion level of the marketing funnel. In my opinion, this is kind of the section that takes the most time and effort, and many of them are kind of outside of your control or are kind of byproducts of the first 2 stages of marketing. But let's dive in. The first one is pretty much the easiest, but go ahead and add some quotes and blurbs to the cover or the back of the book. Take the positive things reviewers are saying and feature it on there. A lot of times people don't even care who's offering the quotes. They just basically see it as a credibility statement. It shows that you've put in the work and that other people are enjoying it. I'd say you can either pull these directly from the websites or the videos where they were published, or you can ask the reviewer to send a sentence or two specifically for the blurb. And I know there are some sites where you can pay to get blurbs as well, but that's up to you how you want to approach it. Yes, you can do local book signings as an indie author. Now, it might feel intimidating to go into a traditional bookstore like Barnes & Noble and set up a booth, but you'd be surprised how supportive your local bookstores are towards local talent. So here's just a quick rundown of how you can get started with this. Either call or go in and ask to speak to the Community Business Development Manager. Tell them about yourself and ask if it would be all right to have a booth set up in the store for a day. Be sure to be polite and respectful, please. You are representing the indie community, so don't be an asshole. They might not say yes, and that's okay. It's all part of the process of growth, but it doesn't hurt to ask. If they do say yes, come prepared. Bring several hardbacks and paperback copies of your book. Also have a QR code where they can scan to download maybe a free ebook or the Kindle Unlimited version. Have your elevator pitch ready and artwork to promote your station and just make it look nice. And the last one is tough especially for us introverts. Like, you're going to have to talk to people. Now, don't talk at them. This is a big mistake that I see at a lot of authors when they're doing book signings or any type of event. Don't talk at them. Talk with them. Remember, we're trying to develop relationships. People are going to come up and ask you about your book, and you're going to be very tempted to tell them. But if you do that, that will be the end of the conversation. So don't do that. Flip the conversation back onto them. Ask them what they like to read and what their favorite books are. Learning about them will help you understand what aspects you should talk about with your book. If your book is an epic fantasy, but the person you're talking to prefers romance, are you going to talk about the epic, deadly battles in your book? Or are you going to talk about the love story that happens as the story progresses? Which one do you think will resonate more with that person that you're communicating with? So do you see the value of asking those questions, getting to know the person you're talking to? That's what's going to help you connect. That's when it's going to make them more likely to have interest in your story. But honestly, the most important thing is just to smile and have a cheerful attitude, even if no one is coming up to speak with you. Don't be staring down at your phone. Don't get discouraged. You just have to remember that a lot of us as readers are also introverts. So it's hard to just go up and start a conversation. But if you're smiling and engaged, it will at least be an inviting aura. Getting on a bestseller list is quite difficult and is often out of your control, or a byproduct of all the effort that you put in. But if you happen to strike gold somewhere along your marketing journey and your book starts flying off the shelves, having a bestseller badge is a huge boost to your credibility. And here's the thing, you only need to be a bestseller once to establish that credibility. And usually to get on the bestseller list, I think you have to sell between like 5,000 and 10,000 copies of your book in a single week. And most of us indie authors will be lucky to sell that many copies in an entire year. So don't feel bad if you don't achieve this. It's just mostly something to keep in mind if you do happen to find this crazy success. If you do see that you're getting large volumes of sales, just check the requirements for bestsellers in your category. This will be a great thing to add to your cover, website, social media, and it might even spark interview opportunities with media outlets. Listen, there are 3 types of readers. You've got your physical copies, your online copies, and audio. Brandon Sanderson says that 30% of all of his book sales come from audiobooks. That means if you don't have an audiobook, you could be missing out on 30% of your audience. Now, this might be something you need to develop down the line. That's why I put it here in the conversion category, because it's going to take a pretty good investment to have someone read and produce your story into an audiobook, especially if it's hundreds of thousands of words long. But if you see you're getting pretty good sales with your physical and online copies, it stands to reason that you can pretty much transfer those over to audio as well. Now, I'm going to work on getting everything from this video condensed down to a single checklist format for all of you, just so that you can download it and make sure you're hitting all the right steps throughout the marketing process. And then I can collect your emails for my own marketing distribution lists. Might as well put it into practice, right? So if that's done, by the time I'm done with this video, I'll put a link in the video description below. Woo! That's all I've got for you today, my fellow book peasants. I know this was a really high-level overview, but that's why this is Indie Book Marketing 101 and not 201 or 301. It would probably take an entire video on each marketing tactic in order to explain how to do it successfully, like how to actually implement these strategies. But I figured there are probably other free videos and resources out there on the internet that can help you far better than I ever could. There's plenty of marketing experts out there, so I would just watch some videos from them if you need to learn how to execute on any of the things that we've discussed here today. And with that, please be sure to like and subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of the Indie Fantasy Club community. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.